Okay. Welcome back to Gut Check Time. I am your host. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Here we go. NFL Week 17 predictions. So, a lot of stuff up in the air. And a game we're starting with Tennessee versus Houston. Tennessee wins. They get in. They get to play the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe this is a rematch of two. It is a rematch of 2 years ago. Chiefs fell down by a lot versus Tennessee. Almost came back and won with a Derrick Johnson caused fumble that eventually got overturned. Titans got it, ran out the rest of the clock, won the game. So maybe it could be a rematch if they beat the Houston Texans. Houston is in the 4 seed, but they still have a little bit to play for. If they win this game, they can move up all the way to the 3 seed, which is a little bit of a difference, not much. But it would make you avoid playing the Buffalo Bills, who I think have a real shot of winning the first round game easily versus the Houston Texans if they stay there. The Chiefs would be a harder scenario for them, but they could beat the Texans in my opinion. But let's get to this game. Tennessee versus Houston. Tennessee is -6. Houston is +6. The over-under here is 44.5. I'm going with the Titans to win this game. They're playing for a lot here. They're playing. This game is it. This is a playoff game for them. If they win, they're in. Houston has a little bit of desperation, but Tennessee's life is literally on the line here. Their football life. They win, they're in. I'm going Tennessee 27-23. So take Tennessee minus 6 here. And like I said, they're playing for the playoff lives here, so I'm going to take them to win the game, which puts them in the playoffs and makes them a very dangerous 6 seed. Way more dangerous than I think the potential of the next team we're going to talk about in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh is going to Baltimore. Baltimore is sitting pretty much everyone out on offense, including Lamar Jackson. I think Baltimore still wins this game. Pittsburgh cannot score. Baltimore's defense has played at an elite level since the Patriots game. Probably been the best or second best defense since that point in time in the NFL, behind maybe the Kansas City Chiefs. I would take Baltimore, like I said, in this game no matter what, just for the simple fact. I think if they have a mix of starters and backups in, they can still win this game, especially if they send most of the starters out on defense, because Pittsburgh can't score. Whoever's at quarterback, Mason Rudolph or Devlin Hodges, is going to turn the ball over, and Baltimore's going to be able to capitalize off that. And really, in this offense, I think RG3 can give them 75% of what Lamar Jackson can do in a one-game scenario. So I'm going to take Baltimore to win this game 20-13. I'm taking the under of 37 here, and I'm taking Baltimore +2. Next up, Philadelphia versus the Giants. Same thing for Philadelphia here. They win this game, they're in the playoffs. They lose this game, they're out. Dallas Cowboys will get in the playoffs. I'm taking Philly to win, but it's going to be close, and I would not shock me. Earlier in the week, I thought no possibility of the Giants pulling this upset. Daniel Jones has played very well down the stretch of the season, and he wasn't in that game in New York when Philadelphia barely won that game when Eli Manning was there. So I'm going to take. Actually, that was in Philadelphia. I apologize. This game's in New York. Um, Philadelphia, I'm going to take the win 24-20. A very close game. I'm taking the under of 44.5 by half a point, so I could be wrong on that. But I'm taking the Giants +3, or I'm taking the Eagles -3.5 here. I just think they're going to win this thing by 4 points, maybe a little bit more. But again, would it shock me if the Giants kept this even closer than that and kept it within the spread or won this game? No, it would not. Next up, San Francisco versus Seattle. And this would shock me. If Seattle beats San Francisco twice this year, when I think personally, I've said this for the last 6-7 weeks, Seattle's the worst whatever win team as we kept going. They, I believe, right now have 11 wins. They're the worst 11-win team I've ever seen. They're not great defensively. Russell Wilson is a great quarterback, but he's not an all-time great quarterback. And you don't have a great running game, especially now with Rashad Penny and Chris Carson out. You're definitely not great at running back. Having to bring back Marshawn Lynch, who hasn't played in a year and a half and came off the couch and just started training 2 weeks ago. I give you one last burst of energy, especially in the locker room, but that's really it. And then on top of that, San Francisco's kind of been inconsistent down the stretch. I feel like they need to win this game to get a bye, because it'd be kind of hard for them to be the 5th seed and then win out all the way to get to the Super Bowl. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're a great team. So I really think they need that bye for the first round of the playoffs. I do have San Francisco winning this game and winning it handily on the road. I have them winning 31-20, and if they win, they get a first round bye. They get the number 1 overall seed, first round throughout the whole playoffs. If they lose, they go down all the way to the 5th seed. Seattle also could clinch a first round bye with a Seattle win and a Green Bay loss. I think Green Bay is going to win either way, even if Seattle does win. So I don't think they're going to get a first round bye. They'd be the 3rd seed at that point, which means they would play I think that would put them in position to play the Minnesota Vikings, if I'm not mistaken, which would be a hell of a playoff game. And to be a playoff game, Minnesota blew a couple years ago on a missed kick by Blair Walsh, I believe 4 years ago, versus Seattle. So that'd be kind of a revenge game because there are some people still left on that Minnesota team that do remember that game. Like I said, though, I'm taking San Francisco 31-20. I'm going to take the over of 46.5, and I'm taking San Francisco -3. Next up, Chargers versus Chiefs. Very disappointing team in the Chargers. Very on point team, I'm going to say, in the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs have been exactly what I have expected. They have been a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball than I expected, though. They have gotten a lot better as the season has progressed on that side of the ball. Their offense is still great. No, not as good as last year's. It's still a very good unit. And I'm going to take the Chiefs to win. If they win this game, they lock up the 3 seed for sure. And they can move up all the way to the 2 seed if the Patriots lose to Miami, which I give that maybe a 5 to 10% chance of happening. If New England has a freak accident or just doesn't show up. This game's in New England, though, and they typically show up in New England late in the year, especially versus bad teams. If this was in Miami, I'd give it more of a 25% chance of happening, since the Miami Dolphins have gotten better throughout the season, and they fight for their head coach, and Brian Flores, who used to be the Patriots defensive coordinator. I'm taking the Chiefs 33-21. I'm taking Kansas City -9. I'm taking the over of 45.5. Next up, Denver versus Oakland. Drew Lock trying to finish the season, I believe, 4-1 as a starter for the Denver Broncos down the stretch. I should know that. I'm a Broncos fan, but I can't get that right off the top of my head. I think Denver wins this game. I think this is a playoff team for sure next year. They have a lot of young pieces, and if they draft well like they have the past 2 years, I for sure think this is a playoff team. They're missing a couple weapons to be elite on offense. If they can get those weapons this offseason, they're pretty much a top 10 unit every year on defense. Since John Elway's been the GM, they've been very good on the defensive side of the football, other than maybe a year or two somewhere scattered in there. But I'm going to take Denver to win this game 27-17. I believe these two teams are just going in opposite directions. I believe Denver is going in the right direction. I think Oakland is heading in the wrong direction just for this year so far. Into next year, we'll have to see. Like I said, I believe Denver's a playoff team going into next year. I don't know about Oakland yet. We're going to have to see if they can draft another draft class like they did this year, which was full of talent and leaders in the locker room. If they can do that, they could be a playoff team next year. We'll have to see. But I think Denver's going to be able to exploit Oakland's secondary, which isn't great, and their offensive line has been played better, which may give them time to throw deep down the field to exploit that secondary. So I'm taking the over of 40.5 here. I'm taking Denver -3, and I'm taking Denver to win this game 27-17. We're going to go to the straight-up picks, which, by the way, I've done pretty well on. I'll get all my gambling picks together and tell you guys next week when we go into the playoffs. But for straight up picks, those were easy to compile. I'm 121-101 this season, so not too bad. That's a 55% winning percentage, just about. So I could do better. My goal is 60% on straight up picks for the NFL and 80% in college. So a little bit of work to do. I could probably get up to 57% if I do well on these games. We'll have to see. Green Bay versus Detroit. I'm taking Green Bay. I don't believe in Detroit. Obviously, Matthew Stafford's out, and David Blough's just not that good. This team overall is just not, they don't do anything great, so I'm taking Green Bay to win. The Jets versus Buffalo, I'm taking Buffalo. They don't have much to play for, but Sean McDermott's going to play him. He said the young guys will play. I think he'll hold some of the veterans out, and I wouldn't be shocked if he pulls some of the young guys in the second half. But I still think they're a better coach team than the Jets, and I also think they have better players at this point than the Jets. Miami versus New England, like I said a little bit earlier in the video, I'm taking New England late in the season at New England versus a bad team. That's a recipe for disaster for the team coming in. I'm taking New England. Chicago versus Minnesota. I'm actually going to take Chicago because Minnesota, from all the reports coming out, are going to be holding out most of their team. They already have their seed locked up. They're the 6th seed, I believe. I don't think they can be they can't be any higher than that. Even if Seattle loses, I still think Seattle would be the 5th seed. I don't think they'd be the 6th seed, so Minnesota's stuck as that 6th seed. Cleveland versus Cincinnati. I could see Cincinnati winning this game, but I'm going to take Cleveland here. Like I said, they've been Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They were Dr. Jekyll last week. Let's see if they can be Mr. Hyde this week. I think they can turn it around, and beat the Bengals in the last week of the season, even if it is in Cincinnati. Next up, New Orleans versus Carolina. I'm going to take New Orleans in this game, just for the simple fact they do have seeding to play for, so that factors into it. So I'm going to take New Orleans to win this game. Atlanta versus Tampa Bay. I'm taking Atlanta. They've played for their coach down the stretch, and it was announced a couple days ago Dan Quinn is going to keep his job. I think if he starts out bad next year like he did this year, he will be fired right away because I think they bought him enough time just because he finished well down the stretch. But Arthur Blank's kind of like in the middle where if it starts out bad next year, he could be gone. And I could see if they start out 5 or 6-0, he could get a contract extension. That's where he's pretty much at in his tenure with the Atlanta Falcons. Next up, Indianapolis versus Jacksonville. I'm taking Jacksonville in kind of a weird situation here. Jacksonville has played terrible, terrible since Nick Foles has come back. Eventually replaced by Gardner Minshew 2 weeks ago, and they lost again last week. I'm going to take the Jaguars for the simple fact they fired in what I see to be the potential problem in the Jaguars, which is Tom Coughlin. Reports coming out that he was finding players an absurd amount of money for little things, and players just didn't want to be there anymore, wanted out of Jacksonville because of the type of vibe he was giving out the players. I mean, it would be late to practice by 5 minutes, you're getting fined 150 grand. So I think they're glad he's gone. So I think they win this game. I think morale's better there, and Indianapolis has not played well down the stretch of the season. Arizona versus the Rams. I think this is a close game, but I think the Rams win. I think Arizona is another one of those teams where if they have a really good draft next year, they could compete for the playoffs. But this isn't next year, so I'm taking the Rams to win that game. Washington versus Dallas. I'm going to take Dallas to win, but I think this game is closer than it should be. Mostly that's how Dallas rolls. Games they should win, they win by a little bit. Games you think maybe they have a chance in, they lay an egg and look like crap in. But I'm going to take Dallas to win this game because they do still have some playoff hope. If they can win this game and the Giants beat the Eagles, they are in the playoffs somehow, some way. And Jason Garrett gets to survive another week because no matter what happens, I think he's gone at the end of the year. The only way this team ever returns to their Super Bowl days of the late and mid 90s is if Jerry Jones gets out of the way and lets the coach be the coach and hires a GM. That's the only way they're going to win a Super Bowl. Jerry Jones will never win a Super Bowl being pretty much the GM and then an owner that takes an interview directly after the game, the first person representing the Cowboys and taking an interview after the game. It's never going to work. So he's going to have to fire Jason Garrett and find a real head coach and not being the de facto head coach. That's the only way it's going to work. We'll see if he does that. I don't know. Will be the last regular season video. I will see you guys again in the playoffs. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Thank you for watching.